Jackson's eyes opened slowly. The light above him was too bright, making his head hurt. He blinked again and again, trying to understand where he was. Everything looked strange: white walls, strange machines, a low humming sound. He tried to move his hand, but it felt heavy, like it wasn't part of his body anymore. That's when he heard a voice. "Careful, human, you've been in a coma for over 20 years. Said a voice filled with concern. Jackson turned his head slowly, his neck stiff. Standing beside him was not a doctor, not a nurse, but an alien. Its skin was blue, eyes large and glowing, with strange silver lines running across its face like veins. The alien wore a white coat, maybe to look like a human doctor, but it didn't help. Jackson's heart raced, and panic filled his chest. He wanted to scream, but his throat was dry and sore. He tried to sit up, but the alien gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "Don't move too fast," it said. "Your muscles are weak. Your body needs time." Jackson looked around the room. Other aliens were walking by, some looking into glowing tablets, some pushing floating machines. This wasn't Earth. This wasn't home. "Where am I?" Jackson asked, his voice rough and weak. The alien hesitated for a moment, then said, "You are safe now, human. You are on Elter Prime, the central medical station." Jackson frowned. That name meant nothing to him. He remembered his ship, the Odyssey, flying near Jupiter, searching for lost beacons. Then there was a bright flash, alarms, and everything turned black, and now he was here. What happened? He whispered. The alien looked sad, like it had said this many times before. "There was a great war, human," it said. "Your planet, Earth, was lost, destroyed in the final wave of attacks." Jackson's chest grew tight. "No," he whispered. "No, that can't be. I am sorry," the alien said, placing something in his arm that made his vision blur again. "You were the only survivor we found in your ship. Deep in space, floating in stasis, we brought you back." The world spun, his body too tired to fight the sleep returning. Before his eyes closed, he thought he saw something, another alien, standing at the door, watching him closely. Expression unreadable. Darkness swallowed him again. He woke up later, feeling slightly stronger. He sat up slowly, this time without help. The room was quieter now, but still cold and unfamiliar. A tray of food sat beside the bed, strange blue cubes, and a clear liquid in a bottle. He didn't touch it. He didn't trust it. He noticed a mirror across the room and dragged himself toward it. The face that looked back was his, but older, thinner, pale, with gray starting to show in his beard. 20 years? Could that really be true? It didn't feel real. He touched his chest and felt scars he didn't remember. Medical scars, surgical ones. What had they done to him? Suddenly, the door hissed open. The same alien from before entered, holding a tablet. "You are recovering well," it said. "I am Supervisor Krell, your caretaker." Jackson stared at him, his eyes full of questions. "Why am I locked in here?" he asked. "Why are there guards outside?" Krell looked surprised for a second, then smiled politely. "It is just a safety measure," he said. "You have been asleep a long time. We want to be sure you do not hurt yourself." Jackson didn't believe that, not even for a second. "I want to see the stars," Jackson said. "I want to see Earth. Or what's left." Krell hesitated, then nodded. "In time," he said, "when you are stronger." Jackson nodded slowly, pretending to accept, but inside his mind was racing. Something wasn't right. Too many things didn't make sense. Why would they rescue a human if the war was over? Why keep him alive for 20 years? Why lie about small things like the guards? He decided one thing. He would play along, smile, nod, eat the food, get stronger. But when the time came, he would escape. And he would find the truth, no matter what, even if it killed him. Asterisk. The hallway lights flickered softly as Jackson pressed his ear to the cold metal door. He waited, breath held, listening for the sound of footsteps. When he heard nothing, he moved back and studied the lock panel beside the door. It Looked alien with no buttons. Only glowing symbols. He raised his hand, hovering it near the panel, and the door clicked open with a quiet hiss. He stepped out carefully, heart thudding in his chest. The hallway was empty, just as he hoped. He had memorized the guard's schedule from the past 2 days, pretending to sleep while they changed shifts. Now was his only chance. His legs were still weak, but each step was quicker than the last. He stayed close to the wall, avoiding the security lights that passed like sweeping eyes. A few turns later, he slipped through an open maintenance door and closed it softly behind him. Inside was a small storage room, filled with tools, spare parts, and strange alien machines. Jackson leaned on a crate, breathing hard. He wasn't just recovering now. He was hiding, and he had questions, real ones. No more listening to Supervisor Krell's sweet lies. He noticed a small access terminal in the corner of the room. It looked basic, but it might still connect to the station's records. He sat down and tapped the screen, surprised when it responded. Symbols flashed across the screen, unreadable at first, until the interface shifted to standard English. "Welcome, guest," the display read. He typed slowly, searching for patient logs, rescue missions, war reports, anything. Most files were locked, but one folder wasn't. It was labeled Human Containment Status Archive. He opened it, and his eyes froze on the first line. Subjects retrieved. 112 subjects survived. His chest tightened. They had found more humans, but only one survived him. He scrolled further, and the screen showed dates, logs, and a list of names. He recognized some old friends from the Odyssey, fellow officers, engineers, a few civilians. They were all gone, except him. He closed his eyes for a moment, his hands shaking. Why him? Why keep only him alive? Then he saw a new log just 1 day old. It showed his file, with a warning. Subject may retain memory fragments, limit access to external views, monitor thoughts during dream cycles. Dream cycles. They were tracking his dreams, maybe even controlling them. Jackson leaned back in the chair, and for the first time, he felt cold fear run down his spine. None of this was about recovery. He wasn't a guest, he was a prisoner. A soft beat made him jump. Someone had entered the hallway. He quickly closed the terminal and hid behind a tall crate. The door slid open slowly, and footsteps entered light. Careful, not a guard's. Jackson held his breath, peeking between the crates. An alien technician stepped in, humming softly, unaware of him. Jackson watched as the technician moved to the panel and opened a small storage locker. Inside was a glowing cube pulsing like a heartbeat. The alien picked it up, mumbled something in his language, and turned to leave. Jackson waited until the door closed, then came out of hiding. He opened the same locker and found another cube. It felt warm in his hands, like it was alive. He slipped it into his gown pocket and left the room quietly, retracing his steps. Every hallway felt longer now, every light sharper, every shadow deeper. By the time he returned to his room, his legs were shaking again. The door closed behind him, and he dropped the glowing cube on the bed. It hummed softly, but did nothing else. Jackson stared at it, wondering what he had just stolen. Suddenly, a voice filled the room. Krell's voice, through the speaker. "You left your room tonight." "Human," the voice said calmly, but coldly. Jackson didn't answer. "You are confused," Krell continued. "This place is for your safety. Wandering is dangerous." Jackson walked up to the speaker on the wall and said, "Then tell me the truth." There was silence. "Why were there other humans?" Jackson asked. "Why am I the only one alive?" Another pause, then the voice returned, lower this time. "Because you were the one we needed," Krell said. The speaker clicked off. Jackson stood there, staring at the wall. The cube beside him gave one final pulse and went dark. He didn't know what it meant yet, but he was sure of one thing. They were watching him, and now they knew he was watching back. The sound of metal dripping echoed in Jackson's ears. He blinked, but the world around him wasn't real. He stood inside a giant hallway made of fire and smoke. Alarms screamed in the distance. Red lights flashing, soldiers ran past him, their faces bloody, broken, and terrified. Then he saw at his own hands, holding a plasma rifle. Shaking, covered in ash, his own voice yelled something, but he couldn't understand the words. Everything around him exploded, and suddenly, he was falling. Jackson woke up gasping, clutching the sheets, his body soaked in sweat. His heart pounded like a hammer inside his chest. That wasn't a dream, that was a memory, a real one. He stared at the wall for a long time, afraid to move, afraid to forget what he just saw. Not just images, but smells, sounds, even pain. That was the last battle, the one they said destroyed Earth. But the strange thing was, he didn't remember Earth being destroyed. He only remembered betrayal. He stood and walked slowly to the mirror, looking at his tired face. Then he whispered to himself, "Who betrayed us?" Someone had injected him with something. That much he remembered now. Right before he blacked out, someone on his own team had turned on him. He couldn't see the face clearly, just a shadow. But they knew he carried something important. A secret. Jackson walked over to the small table and pulled out the glowing cube he had taken from the storage room. It had been silent since he brought it back, but now as he held it, the cube came alive again. It glowed softly and then projected a tiny hologram above it, a rotating symbol, one he recognized, the old Earth Federation seal. Suddenly, the hologram changed and a recorded voice played. It was his own voice. "If you're seeing this," the recording said, "then they didn't erase your memory fully." "Good." Jackson's eyes widened, frozen in place. "You were carrying encrypted data." The voice continued, "Something that proves the Council planned the destruction of our fleet before the battle even began. Someone on our side made a deal with them." Jackson dropped the cube, but the recording kept playing. "You must find the message hub. Send this file to any surviving Federation relay. Don't trust the aliens, don't trust anyone." Then the cube went silent again, the light fading slowly. Jackson stared at it for a long time. It wasn't just a memory, it was proof. He hadn't just been some lucky survivor. He was part of something bigger, and they had tried to bury it. The door to his room opened, and Supervisor Krell entered, walking slowly, calmly. But Jackson saw it now, the way the alien's fingers tapped nervously, the way its eyes scanned the room. Krell knew. "You had a nightmare," Krell said softly. "This is normal during brain healing. I can give you something to sleep peacefully again." Jackson shook his head slowly. "I remember," he said. "I remember what you did to us." Krell tilted its head, faking confusion. "I don't understand." "Human." Jackson stepped closer, his fists clenched. "You lied," he said. "You said Earth was destroyed, but it wasn't. You said I was rescued. But I wasn't. You said I was the only one, but I wasn't." Krell didn't deny it, didn't argue. Instead, the alien's face changed, dropping the act. "You were not supposed to remember," Krell said flatly. "The memories were sealed for a reason." Jackson took another step, eyes burning. "You killed them," he whispered. "All of them." Krell looked away, as if bored now. "They were dangerous," it said. "You still are." The room filled with a high-pitched noise, and Jackson fell to his knees, grabbing his head. A signal, hidden in the room, was attacking his mind. Krell spoke through the noise, voice cold and quiet. "Sleep again, human. Forget again. It's better that way." Jackson screamed through the pain. Fighting it, crawling toward the glowing cube, he grabbed it, pressed it to his chest, and the sound stopped. The cube glowed again, louder now, humming with power. Krell stepped back in surprise, eyes wide. Jackson stood slowly, eyes locked on the alien. "I remember everything now," he said. "And I'm going to finish what I started." For the first time, Krell looked afraid. Jackson didn't care anymore about being careful. He had been asleep too long. Now it was time to wake the others. If any were left, and it was time to fight back. Something was under his skin. Jackson sat on the floor, pressing his fingers gently into the center of his chest, just below the collarbone. It had started with a sharp pain after Krell activated the mind signal, but now that the cube had protected him, he felt something strange inside. His body. A lump, small and hard, just under the skin. He looked around the room, then grabbed a small eating knife from the meal tray. It was dull, meant for soft food, not cutting flesh, but Jackson didn't care. He gritted his teeth and made the cut, slowly and painfully. Blood ran down his chest, but he kept going. Finally, something silver and thin poked through. He pulled it out, a small metal chip, no bigger than a fingernail. It pulsed faintly with blue light. Whatever this was, someone had hidden it inside him long ago. Maybe before the coma, maybe during the war. He wiped it clean and brought it close to the glowing cube. The cube responded immediately, its surface splitting open, revealing a hidden slot. Jackson inserted the chip, and the lights in the room flickered. The air shimmered, and suddenly, a figure appeared in front of him, a full-sized hologram. It was a woman human, wearing a dark uniform, strong voice, familiar face. "Lieutenant Jackson Haile," she said. "If you're seeing this, it means you survived." Jackson stood up slowly, staring at the image. The woman continued. "We embedded the key in your chest before the mission. Only you could carry it past the security layers. We had no other option." The hologram showed images, now secret meetings, alien council members, maps of prison camps across the galaxy. Then came the shocking part. Earth did not fall, she said. It was surrendered by force, sold to the Galactic Council in exchange for technology, resources, and political power. Jackson's heart pounded harder. "They told us we were being rescued," the voice said. "But instead, they selected only a few of us to survive. Not to save us, but to use us, your body, your memories, your data, everything." The hologram flickered, glitching slightly. "Your mission is clear now. Wake up the truth. Spread the file to any remaining Federation channels. They'll know what to do." Then the image looked straight at him, eyes cold and clear. "Do not trust the ones who smile at you. They are the ones who buried us." The cube powered down slowly, its lights fading to black again. Jackson sat back against the wall, heart racing, thoughts spinning. Earth was alive. Earth was a prisoner, just like him, and someone had made sure he carried the truth hidden in his own flesh. A knock echoed at the door, not a soft one, a heavy one. Jackson grabbed the dull knife, again hiding it behind his leg. The door opened and two guards stepped in, tall aliens in dark armor, not like the peaceful staff before. They looked at the blood on his chest, then at the cube, then back at him. "Come with us," one of them said, voice deep and flat. Jackson didn't move. "Where are you taking me?" he asked. They didn't answer, just stepped forward to grab him. He moved quickly, slicing the closest guard's leg, making it stumble. The second grabbed his arm, but Jackson slammed the cube into its chest, and the alien screamed as sparks flew. Jackson ran, barefoot and bleeding, heart pounding like thunder. Sirens wailed through the hallway, red lights flashing, but he didn't stop. He needed to find a terminal, one that wasn't locked, one that could send messages. He passed confused workers and panicked technicians, pushing past them. Finally, he found a communications room, locked but unguarded. He kicked the panel until it sparked, then pulled the wires loose and jammed the cube into the exposed port. The room glowed blue, and symbols flashed across the screen. The message played, his voice, the woman's voice, the truth, all of it, sent through the old emergency beacon system. He watched the screen as it said, "Transmission sent." He fell to his knees, breathing hard, blood still dripping from his chest. But he smiled for the first time. They couldn't hide it anymore. Somewhere out there, someone had received the truth, and maybe, just maybe, someone would come. Someone who remembered Earth, someone who would fight. The room was silent. The emergency transmission had been sent, but no alarms stopped, no guards backed off. Jackson sat against the cold metal wall, weak and bleeding, waiting for something to happen. But the only thing he heard was the soft hum of the dead cube and the faint sound of boots approaching fast. He tried to stand, but his body trembled. Too much blood lost, too much pain ignored. The door burst open, and 2 armored guards grabbed him without a word. He didn't fight this time, not now, not yet. They dragged him through endless hallways, deeper into the station than he had ever been. The walls here were black, not silver, and the lights were dim. They stopped in front of a sealed chamber, one Jackson had never seen before. A symbol above the door flashed red, a warning written in alien script. The door opened with a heavy groan, and he was pushed inside. It wasn't a cell, it was a theater. A giant curved screen lit up in front of him, showing stars, ships, battlefields like a history lesson. And in the center stood Supervisor Krell, waiting, calm as always. "You sent your message," Krell said softly. "You triggered what we hoped you never would." Jackson didn't reply, only stared at the screen behind the alien. It showed Earth, untouched, glowing in blue and green, still spinning quietly. In space, Krell turned and looked at the planet, then back at him. "You wanted the truth." "Human," Krell said. "Here it is." The screen shifted again, this time showing a meeting room, alien leaders, human officers, strange beings with crystal skin and metal eyes. "The war never ended," Krell said. It paused. Jackson watched, confused, as the screen showed a secret council making a deal. "Your people had grown too dangerous," Krell continued. "Too fast, too wild, always building, always fighting. You frightened the old races." Jackson clenched his jaw, still silent. "They gave your leaders a choice," Krell said. "Surrender or face extinction." The image changed again, showing Earth leaders bowing their heads, signing alien scrolls, shaking hands with tentacle beings. "It was not rescue," Krell said. "It was purchase." Earth had been sold. The truth hit harder than any weapon. Jackson's eyes filled with rage. "You lied," he said through clenched teeth. "You said Earth was destroyed. It was easier to control you that way," Krell replied, not hiding the truth anymore. "A man with nothing left will not fight." Jackson took one step forward, fists shaking. "You kept me asleep because I carried proof." "Yes," Krell admitted. "You were supposed to be forgotten like the others, but you survived." The screen now showed prison ships, camps hidden on moon bases, humans working like machines under alien guards. Jackson turned away, unable to look. "So many were taken," he whispered. "They are not killed," Krell said quickly. "They are used, trained, absorbed into new systems. It is efficient." Jackson laughed bitterly. "You call that mercy?" "No," Krell replied. "We call it peace." The door behind Jackson opened, and more guards entered, weapons in hand. "This is where it ends," Krell said. "You've sent your truth, but it won't matter. The galaxy is old and tired. It won't rise for your species." Jackson reached into his sleeve and pulled out the last pulse detonator he had taken from the technician during his escape. "I don't need the galaxy," he said. "I only need one ship." Krell's eyes widened. Jackson threw the device to the ground, and a burst of blue energy filled the room, frying the guards' weapons and knocking them down. Jackson ran, this time with purpose, with rage, with fire in his soul. The truth had broken him, yes, but it had also lit something else. A storm. He didn't need Earth to be free today. He needed to make sure someone out there still believed it was worth saving. He reached the hangar bay as alarms blared across the station. Ships powered up, but only one was old enough for him to fly, an Earth model hidden among scrap vessels. He climbed in, breathing hard, blood still dripping, vision blurry, but his hands knew what to do, muscle memory from a life before the coma. He powered the engines, lifted the ship, and tore through the force field doors. The stars opened in front of him like a sea of silent fire. He didn't know where the signal had gone, or who would hear it, but he was free, and the truth was finally flying with him. Asterisk shook as plasma fire exploded behind him. Jackson gripped the controls tightly. steering the stolen Earth-class shuttle through a swarm of alien drones. His vision blurred with pain, but he kept flying. He didn't have a destination, just one goal: get as far from the station as possible. A voice crackled through the ship's old speakers. Unidentified vessel. Turn around immediately. The alien warning repeated in 3 languages. He switched it off, grinding his teeth. Not today, he muttered. Not again. The ship was slow, older than the rest, its hull scratched and dented, but it was built by humans. And that meant it was stubborn, just like him. A red light flashed on the console, and the ship dropped out of warp into a dead zone. No signals, no satellites, just cold space. Jackson leaned back in the seat, chest rising and falling fast. He had escaped for now, but he needed help, and he didn't know who to trust. Suddenly, a quiet voice echoed behind him. You should have told me you were planning to run. Jackson spun around, eyes wide. A figure stood in the dark corner of the ship, small, cloaked in a hood, glowing eyes beneath. It was the alien technician girl from the station. He had seen her once before, when she passed him the cube without speaking a word. You, he said. Shocked, how did you get on this ship? She pulled back her hood slowly, revealing pale silver skin and soft white hair. I never left it, she said. I was hiding in the lower panel, waiting. Jackson narrowed his eyes, confused and cautious. Why would you help me? She stepped forward, holding something in her hand, a data shard marked with the old human resistance symbol. Because I'm not one of them, she said. My mother was human. Jackson's breath caught in his throat. You're mixed. She nodded, eyes sad. My mother was taken during the first wave, she said. Forced into a breeding program. I escaped years ago and joined the hidden rebellion. Jackson stared at her, stunned. There's a rebellion? A small one, she said. Scattered, hunted, but alive. She plugged the shard into the ship's console, and a star map appeared, covered in red dots. These are the labor camps, she said. Prison stations, hidden colonies, places where your people still survive. Jackson's hands clenched on the edge of the console. How many? Thousands, she whispered. Maybe more. The screen shifted again, showing a signal pulsing in deep blue. This was your transmission, she said. It reached one of the old relay points, and now they know you're awake. Jackson stared at the pulse on the map. It was moving, heading toward them. Is that a response? He asked, voice tight with hope. She nodded slowly. It could be a rebel ship, she said. Or it could be something worse. Jackson stood and walked to the window, watching the stars pass. He had been asleep for 20 years, lost, forgotten. Used like a tool, but now things were changing. People were listening again. Your name, he said, turning back to her. What do I call you? She paused, then said quietly, Lyra. He nodded. Lyra. We're not going back to sleep, he said. Not until every one of them is free. A red alert flashed suddenly, and the console beeped sharply. Ship approaching, Lyra said. Scanning quickly. It's fast, heavily armed, unknown origin. Jackson sat back in the pilot chair, eyes locked on the display. I guess we find out if someone still believes in the fight, he said. Outside, a sleek black ship appeared from the shadows of a dead moon. Silent and powerful, its weapons were armed, but it hadn't fired, not yet. A voice crackled through their radio, rough and low. Is this the human? The voice asked. Jackson leaned forward and answered. This is Jackson Hawley, Earthborn, Federation trained, he said. Who are you? There was silence, then laughter, low and strange. You're late, the voice said. We've been waiting for you. Jackson looked at Lyra, and she nodded once, her hand hovering over the manual weapon switch. This was it, either hope or another trap. But Jackson had made up his mind long ago. He would rather burn in the stars than live in a cage again. The dark ship drifted silently beside them. Its black hull shimmered like oil under the stars, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. Jackson's fingers hovered above the weapon controls, sweat running down the side of his face. Lyra stood beside. Him, eyes narrowed, ready for anything. The voice came again through the static. Low but clearer this time. We received your message, human. You did something we thought was impossible, Jackson replied calmly. Then tell me who you are. Before I power up the cannons. A moment of silence passed, then the reply came. We are the Forgotten Fleet, survivors of the last stand. We've been hiding for 20 years, waiting for proof that Earth was not truly lost. Lyra gasped softly, her eyes wide. Jackson stared at the console, unsure if he believed it. You're human? He asked. Yes, the voice said. Some of us. Others are like her. Lyra's eyes filled with something close to hope. Half human, the voice continued. All loyal to the cause. The screen lit up with a video feed showing a tired face, scarred and worn, but human and old captain in a torn Federation jacket. Name's Captain Dre, he said. I served with your father on the Odyssey before they erased our names. Jackson's breath caught. You knew him? Dre nodded. He died fighting to protect that data shard you carried in your chest. We thought it was lost forever. Lyra touched Jackson's arm gently, her voice soft. You didn't just survive. You carried the last key. Jackson swallowed hard and looked at the stars beyond the ship's window. This key, he said, isn't just a file, it's a call. He activated the final transmission beacon from the cube. Now fully powered by the shard, a bright wave of blue light shot into the void, spreading across channels long abandoned, old Federation frequencies, rebel signals. Even scavenger bands all would hear the same thing. His voice, clear and steady, speaking across the stars. This is Lieutenant Jackson Hawley of Earth. I have returned. I carry proof that our world still breathes, that we were betrayed, and that our people still live. Lyra watched silently, her chest rising with pride. The message continued. Do not believe their silence. Do not believe their comfort. Humanity is not extinct. We are waiting. We are waking. And we remember. The signal echoed outward, bouncing off satellites, deep space towers, and hidden recorders. Far in the distance, ships paused. Stations turned. Survivors lifted their heads. Some cried, some cheered, others simply whispered, He's back, inside the ship. Captain Dre's face broke into a grin. You just started a war, son, he said. And this time, they won't see it coming. Jackson smiled for the first time in years. I'm counting on it, he said. The Forgotten Fleet opened its hangar bay, and Jackson docked his shuttle, stepping out onto solid ground. Dozens of rebels saluted him, men and women, humans and hybrids, some old, some just children. When Earth fell, one stepped forward. Handing him a clean Federation coat, the patch still intact, he put it on slowly, the weight of it familiar and comforting. Dre stood beside him, nodding toward a large screen. Your message reached over 100 outposts in 10 systems, he said. Responses are already coming in. Lyra stood by his side, her silver eyes watching the blinking lights. We're not alone anymore, she whispered. Jackson nodded. No, he said. We never were. They just made us forget. He looked into the camera at the center of the room, ready to speak again. But this time, not as a victim. Not as a patient in a coma, but as a soldier, as a human. Prepare. The fleet, he said. We're going to bring them home. The rebels cheered. Engines roared to life. Banners of old Earth rose again in silent hangars and far across the galaxy. In secret places, people listened, people hoped. Humanity had returned, not as ghosts, but as fire.